Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are tuned into the Corner Kick wherever you are in this great soccer world. Alex Fidrashevsky, JJ Pepe with you. This week being brought to you by, of course, our fine affiliate there, CWTAP Television via their YouTube channel. JJ, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy week in soccer, so we've got a lot to get to.
And not a lot of time to cover it in. Let's jump in both feet. Today, December the 5th, 2017, the big news of the day in U.S. soccer. Sunil Gulati, president of the U.S. Soccer Federation, announces he will not be seeking re-election in 2018. So U.S. soccer will see a new face in charge come the spring. We also got what seems to be our 37th candidate into the fray as MLS executive and president of some Soccer United Marketing. Kathy Carter announced her intention to pursue the title of president of U.S. Soccer. She joins regional director of the UPSL, Paul Lapointe, Boston attorney Stephen Gans, former players Eric Winalda, Kyle Martino, Paul Caligiuri, and about 36 others who've batted around the idea of jumping in. JJ, with Sunil's departure, we're going to see a new president, but does it mean a new philosophy? The lowest common denominator will say, well, yeah, it's somebody new, but the convoluted reality of U.S. soccer says possibly, and if you're on the inside, if probably not almost, that it's going to trend to there's much more than meets the eye to the U.S. Soccer Federation. It's not like the president sets the complete agenda here. There are a lot of business people that are involved as well. So what's your take with Sunil's departure?
Well, first, I'm not surprised. I was anticipating he would not run when he didn't jump into the race straight away. I think it would have been better for all involved if it would have happened earlier. I think for a little bit he was maybe just feeling everything out to make sure he would still have his place with FIFA and work to be heavily involved in what should be a United States-led hosting of the 2026 World Cup. Knowing those will probably play out, I think that made it easier for him to step away. It was interesting. He said he felt that if he ran, he would win, and I believe that.
I'm with you.
Just from a few of the people I've talked to who are involved in the voting sector, I think he would have won the vote. I think he would have had a couple certain levels. He has too many people through the different ranks. You would have had your people who want a radical change, who would have been all over the shop between candidates, and Sunil would have gone into presidency again. I think that report that he and Don Garber were advising, strongly encouraging Kathy Carter to run are accurate. Kathy Carter, say it plainly, she is an establishment pick. For people who want change, you're not going to get it with Kathy Carter. I've been in circles with her through the years. A very, very smart business person. You don't become president of Soccer United Marketing by not knowing business. The coffers of U.S. soccer would continue to grow, but this entrenchment with U.S. soccer and and how it's all intertwined, bringing MLS in, all the conspiracy theorists, who have their field day, it would get stronger on that front. I think it would possibly damage certain areas of lower league soccer. So I think Kathy is an establishment pick. I don't think she'll win. I don't think she has a chance, to be honest with you. I also think anybody who says that they're going to make soccer the number one sport in America during the term of this presidency is in fantasy land, because they're not going to put it above the NFL. You got to take off the goggles, see things for what they are, and soccer will not be more popular than the NFL in the next 8 to 12 years. So I think that's foolish on her part to make that one of her big things. You can help get it on that trajectory with this upcoming president, but you're not going to do that. Not at all.
No, I think it's a much more long-term process than that, if ever.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, sorry, still battling a bit of a cold here, but I think what you see You get outside of some of the more soccer centric markets, things are growing, but it's a very, very different game. You get into the mountains of the Smoky Mountains in the south. I just drove through there, and yes, we're working on some affiliates down there, and there's some interest in the game, but it is not going to overtake Virginia Tech football or West Virginia football or the Steelers or whatever that is, you want to call it NFL, college football anytime soon. So I think that's a bit of a fantasy, as you said. The entry of Carter has been met with massive pushback on social media forums of, if you want to call it, Soccer America. It's clear that many fans, pundits, even the lower division club owners don't want someone from or associated with, as you said, Soccer United marketing, which is heavily intertwined with Major League Soccer, USSF, aka everybody's all in the same boat. You get it. They don't want someone like that running the show because, as you said, it means more of the same. That status quo, the almost perception among the Twitterverse that MLS is going to be pandered to, while other clubs, specifically USL and PSL, are forcibly choked off, and anybody posing a threat, be it Detroit City, Chattanooga, is someone they will try to bring into the fold of the USL as a means to kind of push them off to the side and give them the promises of MLS glory, which I think San Antonio was sold on. Because let's face it, MLS is about out of room, and things are going to have to change at some point in that department. And we can even talk about Peter Wilt later on if you'd like with NISA. But again, with Carter, obviously we talked about who she is, this high-powered MLS executive and some executive who has a great business resume, and we see what her deal is. It's going to be holding the line. And I think at the end of the day, the real question about Carter is, why should Soccer America be either supportive of her or weary of her candidacy? And I think we laid out a pretty good reason as to why a lot of people are looking at her in a negative light, simply because of the tired notion of we're going to do this the same way. And I think a lot of people felt burned with Bruce Arena even going on television during the Portugal friendly saying, I think we've got everybody who's out there. So I think that there's two camps. You have your establishment. It sounds like we're talking about Republicans and the Democrats here. You have your establishment camp, and then you have the kind of far right, far left that brought you Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. So is this where we're going in the soccer universe, where Eric Winalda is kind of the people's champion on one end, and you've got Carter trying to be the mainstream, and then does that put Kyle Martino in another camp somewhere? And what about these lawyers and business people? They seem like long shots to me, at least.
They are. Somebody like Steve Gans, he threw his hat in the ring early. I've said after listening to him, I didn't think he had much substance. He went on his listening tour. Kathy Carter wants to go on a listening tour. Everybody's on a listening tour. Problem is, you've got too many organizations, too many states, too many people wanting a seat at the table. And it can't work that way. That's why soccer has been broken for years. Let's be honest. When you have 55 state associations, but only 50 states, there's a problem. And somebody needs to kind of rein that all in. Kathy Carter will, I said she's the establishment. If she went against MLS and kind of did this full 180, that is the equivalent of the, tag team champions and hitting your partner with a chair. That's what that would be like, and I just don't see that happening. I think she's entrenched, and there was an interesting question posed by Peter Wilt today on Twitter. Kathy Carter gets elected U.S. Soccer president. Does she resign her position at some? And if she does not come out and say that she would, or put it into some kind of binding contract, there's always going to be a doubt that she's going to be running both. And while the president of U.S. Soccer does not do the day-to-day thing, she was the one good part of her vision, and I read it today, was she would be president but not the CEO. Dan Flynn, he's going to continue on if he wants to run the business and grow it. She wants to do stuff at the board level, but the problem is she can lay across all these things, just like Eric Winalda can lay out all these things. Doesn't mean one thing's going to get done because it's got to be voted on by the board, and if it doesn't go through, then what's going to happen to us? And that's where everybody has to be careful. You can put an Eric Winalda in there, doesn't mean what he wants is going to get done. He's not a dictator. He's in an elected position with a board underneath him who can't, well, you say underneath, but really they have so much power. It's the checks and balances, just like every other, corporation has. And I'll go a step further. I don't think half of these candidates, how many are there now? 7 or 8?
I believe we're up to 7 officially, 8 if
And only
8 or
two,
9 unofficially.
only two are supposedly in a position where they have the 3 letters to nominate them. You mentioned Kyle Martino. I don't think he gets them. I think he's struggling.
No, I don't.
Paul
I don't think so
Caligiuri,
either.
he's not going to get them. He's gone. I'm surprised he even threw his hat in the ring. I think one of the other guys is Steve Gans or maybe Paul Point or somebody. I think one of those guys won't get it. I think Kathy Carter will get them. She'll get them from the top level of the game. She probably already has them in her back pocket. She just hasn't come out with them yet. Winalda said he has his 3. And Illinois, I think it was Illinois State Soccer Association came out and said that they were one of them. So there's still a lot to play for here, but by the time it comes into there, I think we're going to be looking at 3 at most.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think you did a good job of laying out the reality of the position that it's important, but you still have, as you said, it's kind of like this entrenched business board that you're going to have to crack, and to get them to get on board with the changes that someone like Eric Winalda, I think, is trying to put out there for the public, that he wants to see these vast sweeping changes to the U.S. soccer system. In theory, I don't know if Winalda is necessarily wrong. I think that a lot of the points that he's made, if not most of the points that he has made, are valid, and I think they hold quite a bit of weight. It's the implementation of that idea that he has, which I think is going to take time. It's going to take a lot of money, and it's going to take a changing mindset of an American business person in soccer today, which I think is equally as big a part of the problem, if not bigger than the simple idea that Major League Soccer is closed off from promotion and relegation. I think you have to try to change the idea of what an investor means to forget the franchises of MLS or even in the USL, but to a club. And look what happens in Europe or Argentina or South America, the rest of that area, or Mexico. The realization that if you are in charge of one of these teams, you go full boat and you go from the academy all the way up, you're going to lose quite a bit of money in the early going, and you may not recoup that. And I think that is something that American business people in general struggle with. I think it's just a business thought process we have in this country that if we're not returning at 27%, we're doing a bad job. And the reality is, I think with Winalda's idea, and I think you see even some of these other teams that are trying to expand out now with their youth systems in the USL and whatnot, even the MLS teams. A lot of them are just coming to realize what it takes to run this type of organization and how much money you have to be prepared to lose. And the more successful ones I think you've seen are the ones who understand that idea. As far as academy goes, show me a better one in the United States than Red Bull New York, but by the same token, that's an organization that knows what it's like to lose money in Salzburg every year. So I think for Winalda, he's got a lot of great points, but to kind of put a bow on my thought, you have to come back to changing a business mindset at the same time you're trying to, I don't know if you want to call it blow up the system, or maybe it's restructure the system from the U5s playing the kindergarten church leagues on Saturday all the way up to Major League Soccer. That's a tall order to ask, and I think he's got some great points, but there's a lot of changes I think that have to come along with it.
I think it would be a parallel. I think when all is on the boat of if MLS doesn't want to be involved, they don't have to be. They can stay on the side. And, you got somebody like Peter Wilt sitting there who's saying, if NASL survives, we'll go with them. If they don't, we'll step in. We'll be Division III, and then we'll be prepared in a couple of years to step up to have Division II and Division III. Then we want to work with those below us. It was interesting, the interim commissioner, I guess he's still interim, of the NASL was at the NPSL meetings touting how NASL is for promotion and relegation, yet this is a league whose most vocal owner and leading the charge on this lawsuit has said that if the Cosmos aren't Division II, he's going to shut them down. So then how can he be for something if he's against it? I'm for promotion and relegation as long as I don't get relegated. Well, guess what? It could happen. Look at Aston Villa going down. Look at Leeds. Look at, Juve a few years ago. Even though it was through controversy, they went down. Big clubs, traditional clubs, eventually run into trouble, especially when you're not in, the mighty top 4 or 6 clubs of a country anymore. There's always possibility of financial trouble and trapdoor falls. So who's to say that the Cosmos in 5 years wouldn't be relegated? Is he just going to shut up shop? Are some of these other NASL owners thinking the same way? Ricardo Silva. What happens if he gets relegated to Division III from Division II? So there's a lot of play in there right now, and a lot of this is going to unfold before the president gets elected. I think Winalda's also, which I like his candidacy right now. I like how he went about, well, I'm for promotion relegation, but what people have to understand is even if he gets voted in, it's not happening next season or the season after. It's going to take a little while to get everything ready, everything in gear. And it all requires something that none of us want to have, which is patience. We have to be patient. It's going to take some time. It's probably going to take 6 to 8 years in the long run to finally get this up and running the way we want it. And at some point after it's rolling, then do you see an NFL, AFL type deal where everybody comes together? Who knows? But it's going to be interesting. And there's still plenty of weeks to play out. There's an important lawsuit that has to get decided upon in December. December 15th it starts. So we're just about there for opening arguments. When is that even going to get decided? Before the end of the year? Will we know going into 2018 if the NASL is in existence or not?
Well, I think every day that goes by hurts both the NASL chances for next year because, as you said on many of our television programs, how can you sell tickets and sponsorships and partnerships when you don't know if you're going to be there next year? Mm-hmm. And there are, we're not at 8 anymore or 7 in the NASL, but if you're the New York Cosmos, if you're Miami, how can you sell season tickets to fans? How are you selling your Christmas packages to people, your little discounts or whatever you have going, or even your partnerships? I'm sure, everybody does their budgets in January. December's a big time to get your big hits out of the way. How can you do that if you're sitting there going, well, we kind of have to wait until this lawsuit ends, and if it ends, we're done. So, but you should sign with us anyway because we might be here next year. And then by the same token, it holds Peter Wilt back because he can't go get his ducks in a row. But I think he seems a little more content to wait it out and say, well, if we go in 2019, we go in 2019. But I don't even know where we are with this NASL lawsuit right now. They're trying to hold it up for, all I can figure is to try to hold the business together long enough to get the exit fees at $10 million, not $25,000.
If what it's going to come down to is now it's the appeal on the injunction. If they win, they get the injunction, they stay Division II. If they fail, the league goes under. And they all know because Puerto Rico is going to pull out. So then that's another one. The 2 new California teams will probably flee. All these teams with these letters of intent, you're talking about tickets. I think it's Boca Raton is already selling tickets for, what are they, in the NPSL? But
NPSL.
they're already selling tickets for next season in a different league. So how serious are they about actually going up? I think in the end, I think the injunction gets rejected, the appeal. Just from what I've seen, this guy from UCLA who's on Twitter a lot has been analyzing. He was spot on with the first one. I think he's going to be spot on again. The NASL is doing a little bit of run around on the judge, trying to put fancy terms in and say U.S. Soccer was doing this, but there was one instance where they couldn't even point to a case to relate to it. So they're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing if it sticks. And this court does not have a history of overturning appeals on their lower circuit. So I think, come the coaches convention in January, I think Peter Wilt is going to be full steam ahead with trying to get things kicked off for spring of 2018 after the World Cup. So I guess you'd say summer, fall. And if the NASL does get the injunction, I think that moves NISA then to definitely 2019. I think that's how those two will fall. And, it's just a waiting game now. It's all we can do, and that will affect the presidency as well for U.S. Soccer. I really think it.
I think we've covered quite a bit here in our first segment. We should take a break now and thank some of our sponsors and partners, and then we will be back with the second portion here of the Corner Kick. We'll talk about Major League Soccer, and there's been quite a bit of off-season action that has already begun, and we'll have to talk about the MLS Cup final coming up as well. So keep it tuned right here to the Corner Kick. Welcome back to the Corner Kick. Alex Fidrushevsky and JJ Pepe with you. JJ, we get back into it here domestically. The MLS season is coming to a close this weekend as Toronto plays Seattle in MLS Cup, and then we've got some real action taking place off the field with the expansion teams down to the Final Four now for who will be coming into MLS. We've got Nashville, Cincinnati, Detroit, Sacramento. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's cycle back. MLS Cup coming up this weekend. Lots of folks in the soccer community have said that if Toronto is victorious, they're the best team in MLS history. What say you?
Definitely possible. With the points they've put up, winning the cup, and in an age where it's so different than it was from, any of those teams that would be in the conversation from, 15 years ago. Probably I think that one LA Galaxy team comes to mind. I don't think you can compare them because everybody has bigger purse strings. When you look at clubs like New York City, what the Red Bulls did a few years ago to where they are now. I mean, they've still spent a lot of money. There's more money in the game now than there was then. And I think this Toronto team, player for player, is probably better as well. However, I don't think they're going to win. I'll tip my hand. I think Seattle's going to do it again. When you put the form table up, I think Seattle's only towards the end of the season, they were only a draw behind compared to a loss or something. They were the two best teams over the last 15 to 20 games. So it's not like Seattle is the seventh place, the sixth place team out of the West or the fourth, or they struggle towards the end. They just weren't as good early on compared to Toronto. So you have, in my opinion, the two best teams in the league since probably July. And listen, Seattle's gone in there. They went in there last year and did it with a team that wasn't as good. I think Toronto's going to get caught here. I really do. Is Josie going to be in the mood to run, or because it's a final, or is he going to be on a walkabout like he was in Trinidad? Is Michael Bradley going to have one of his games where he's making pinpoint passes on the ball, or is everything going to go sideways and backwards and he gets lost? Is Giovinco going to be running around crying all over the place? Who knows? But I'm looking at Seattle not even making is Toronto FC the best team ever a conversation.
Well, since you've tipped your hat, I think it's time for me to tip mine, and it's the same way. I think that Seattle's going to go into Toronto and they're going to get the job done again. I agree with you. Their run of form over the last 3.5 months of the regular season was spectacular, and I think their form, even in the playoffs over 4 games, has been very, very good as well. Whereas Toronto has looked a little shakier. Um, I really do think that Seattle, with all of the pieces now together, will get the job done. And I think the reason is the same as yours. There are those 3 question marks. They happen to be the 3 biggest guns that Toronto has, and they're 3 of probably, if not the 3 most marketed players in the league. But you have, which, as you said, which Josie Altidore shows up? Is Giovinco spending more time crying to the official, and is Michael Bradley spraying crosses into the stands instead of forward? I, for the life of me, can't bank if I was a betting man that all 3 of them align in the final. I don't think you will get run-in Josie, scoring Giovinco, and Zen Michael Bradley. You might get 1, you might get 2. I don't think you get all 3. And for me, out of the 3, the most volatile is Josie Altidore. I think we saw it in the series with the Red Bulls, that his temper can get the best of him. And I think that there's a big stigma over his head right now, especially because of not just his play over the last years, but specifically because of what happened down in Trinidad. And I think Michael Bradley faces the same. Luckily for them, they're at home. So maybe that takes a little of that bite away. But I still, for the life of me, if I was a betting man, wouldn't bet that you're going to get all 3 of them on the game that they need them to have to get them over the line. I think depth-wise, Toronto has done a great job this year of working the salary cap and working contacts. They brought in some really good players this year, and I think they had a great run when everybody's been healthy. Victor Vasquez has been a real steal for them. Nicholas Hasler has proven to be a really versatile player that they brought in, who can play wing back, he can play wing midfielder, he can play as an attacking midfielder. He came in halfway through the season from Vaduz in Liechtenstein, playing in the Swiss league for the last 6 seasons, and plays for their national team. He was a great signing on a pretty good price. And they've got some great individual players, but again, for me, you hang those 3 question marks out there, one of them doesn't fall through, and I think the Seattle Sounders are raising the trophy again.
Yeah, and when you look at just the playoff games, Seattle yet to concede, 4 clean sheets, scored 7 goals. Toronto scored in the 72nd minute of the first leg against New York and did not score again until the 60th minute of the second leg against Columbus. So the second leg against New York, they didn't score. The first leg against Columbus, they were held again without a goal. They do have 3 clean sheets, but they've only scored 3 times. And in MLS, when you're sent off, is that a 1-game or a 3-game ban for a straight red?
Let's find out.
Because how did Josie only get a 1-game ban for a straight red card for a fight in the tunnel with Sasha Kleshnan? He should have been banned for the rest.
Theoretically,
because
I'm not sure where the rule is, and heaven knows they probably don't have it published.
Oh, goodness, no, especially if they changed it. But I just found that interesting that he was sent off not for a second bookable offense, which is a 1-match ban,
but for a straight
red card.
Shouldn't that lie in 3 matches?
Yeah, but regardless, I think we're both seeing the same. I think Seattle, as opposed to New York and Columbus, has more firepower going forward. I think you're going to see that. I think Toronto's defense is going to be tested, even though Seattle's at home. Like always, weather the first 10 minutes. and you'll be all right. But having said all that, how many times do you see in this situation, team doesn't give up a goal for the entire playoffs and they get to the final and they give up six, and they get just torn apart. It's going to be interesting. Something else I didn't know is that the game kicks off Saturday at 4:30. I thought it was a Sunday night game like last year. so, so we have that going for us. It's a mid-afternoon game on Saturday.
MLS is different.
Are they?
Automatic suspensions. I found a release from MLS Pressbox, pressbox.mlssoccer.com. I'm not sure how old this is, but I think it's probably still in effect. Red cards issued in MLS games result in ejection from the game in progress and an automatic one-game suspension and $250 fine.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then they stayed to the letter of the law of the league, and I guess that's why Josie was allowed to continue on. And that's fine. I wasn't looking for an extra ban. I just thought it was 3 games for a straight sending off. But that answers that.
Too much English Premier League. Too much English Premier League for you.
Yeah, I know. And I don't even watch that much of it this season.
I've watched barely any.
Yeah, I'm more a Bundesliga man.
It's been really exciting over there.
Yeah. So what's your score prediction for Seattle Toronto?
Seattle 2, Toronto nothing.
All right. I am going to go and be the party pooper. Seattle 0, Toronto 0, Seattle on penalties.
You're really going to do that to us?
3-1 on penalties.
You're going to make us watch 120 minutes of goalless soccer. Thank you.
Sorry.
I love you. I hope you're wrong.
So do I. I hope there's an early goal and I'd like to see Seattle get it. Not for my pick's sake, but I think that'll make Toronto press even a little bit more to go after the game a little bit, because I think seeing Toronto in the ascendancy would be good. If Toronto gets the first goal, I don't know. I think it's going to be harder for even still Seattle. I think will still play more conservative. Don't give up the second. Try and nick them when you can until it gets later on.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment of where they're at for MLS Cup final, but I guess at the end of the day, we are both in agreement that we think Seattle will get the job done.
Yep.
All right.
Moving on.
Let's move it on. Enough with this season. It's time to talk about the future because it's so much more fun to speculate about other things than what's going to happen in the penalty kick shootout that JJ has predicted. We are down to the final 4 for the MLS expansion project, including Nashville, Cincinnati, Detroit, Sacramento. Let's take a moment now to break down each of these markets and see from our point of view who's got the best shot. We'll start off in Cincinnati. They are the attendance leaders of the USL. They would bump off just about everybody in MLS based on their numbers. That's a positive for them. Their on-field success, specifically in this year's Open Cup, in my opinion, has been very good, above average. They brought, was it Crystal Palace, I believe, over last year for the sold-out friendly, and got great praise from them. Their biggest issue, it seems to me, is the stadium. Obviously, MLS isn't going to be keen on them playing at Nippert, even though that's kind of become their fortress. They're going to want a soccer stadium, ironically for them, but New York City can play at Yankee Stadium. That's a whole other ball game here. But nevertheless, they have mulled over a couple ideas. One's in Cincinnati. The other one's across the river in Kentucky. They haven't really locked up the stadium site yet. Other than that, they seem to have some good things. They just added, I believe it was the CEO of Cintas as an investor into the MLS project. What's the Cincinnati chance here? What's their reality right now?
Cincinnati got a boost a week or two ago when a couple of votes went their way for infrastructure money. They contributed a little bit more, and they got the votes to swing the way they needed. The biggest question mark is exactly where it's going to go. I don't think it's going to go to Kentucky side now because they have the Cincinnati money. So it's probably going to be somewhere in the city. The question is where, and I think they're still looking at a couple options. Because of that, and when that went through, I have Cincinnati getting the second spot. I think they catapulted from the third position before that vote to second. So I think they will get one of the two expansion sides.
I think
Um,
I'm with you on that one. Again, the ownership group is something that I think MLS would be very happy to have. It's led by Carl Lindner III. His family's one of the richest in the country, American Financial Group. 8 other investors have joined him in this MLS investment, including, like I said, Scott Farmer of Cintas, George Joseph, Joseph Automotive out there, Jack Wyant, Blue Chip Venture Company. So he's got some real heavy hitters with him, and I think that is good for them. They average 22,000 fans again, as we said, and then it looks like again they've got that site now where Newport, Kentucky is really out of the picture, and they're looking at options in Cincinnati. Club eventually established here. It says Oakley as its preferred stadium site, with another possible option in the West End over the Rhine. So there are some funding plans. Like you said, they came together and taken to the city council for votes, and it looks like they got 52 million out of the 75 million that they were looking for. So they're in a pretty good spot. I think, as you said, they will get one of the two remaining MLS expansion spots. Let's go out west.
And what helps,
okay.
just before we do, what else is going to help Cincy is the Columbus fiasco. Because if Columbus does move, that would mean you'd have a gap from Philadelphia to Chicago. So Cincinnati would plug that hole in between. So I think that whole Columbus deal helps with the uncertainty, although in the end I still think Columbus is going to stay. But that's for another time.
Next week.
I think that Cincy, that whole situation, in addition, helps Cincinnati.
I think so too, and I'm with you. I think at the end of the day, whether it means Precourt has to sell the crew or simply reneges, I think they're staying in Columbus, and I think a Columbus-Cincinnati rivalry would be absolutely fantastic, and it would really give soccer in Ohio a big shot in the arm to have two MLS teams, and I think they can support them, and they're only going to be separated by about 2.5 hours, and I think that would be, they make for some great road games, and I think even, going the other way, you'd have Cincinnati with Chicago and the Union and Toronto. There's a lot going on there, and I think it would be really, really positive for the game there in the Rust Belt. Let's jump out west. Sacramento has been another USL leader in attendance and on-field performance. They have a very, very strong ownership group, several high-profile investors. They seem to have a stadium site locked up as well. So what's going on in California's capital?
California's capital will be seeing an MLS club when this is done. I have them as the front runner over the other three. They've had everything together for a bit. Stadium's approved. I think they're even going to be pushing dirt soon. So it's real out there. And again, Cincinnati and Sacramento, another thing that these two cities have over Nashville and Detroit is they have established supporter base. This isn't a guess. Are people going to go? Are they not? That's why clubs like Portland and Seattle and when Vancouver came in, why they did so well. There were established supporters bases there. You're not going out and hoping people come to a game who have never been to a soccer game before. So I think Sacramento, I think their bid is very strong. They had that hiccup early when you had the little division there between some new investors and the original owners, and when the original documents went over, it didn't mention the Republic. It was just Sacramento. All that, I don't remember if it was Kevin Johnson and somebody brought everybody together and everybody became friends again. And I think all of this is going to lead to Sacramento in Major League Soccer.
I agree. I think Sacramento is a lock, and I think that's something they've known for quite some time. And I think for MLS, it's a good logical fit out there. You'll have them in San Jose. You'll have the Galaxy LAFC, and then you'll have your teams up in the Pacific Northwest as well, and Denver. Everybody's pretty close there. I think that, and again, their investment group is really strong, and they have an established brand, as you said. Same thing with Cincinnati. It's a known. They know what they're going to get there, and yes, Sacramento isn't the glitziest market available for soccer in the United States in terms of market size. I believe them and Cincinnati, too, are both just over 2 million people and hanging somewhere around 27th, 28th, the both of them, in terms of MSAs. In America, just are behind Pittsburgh and ahead of Vegas. But if you think about it, it's a good market to fill, because I don't know, if you look at some of these larger ones, I don't know if Baltimore is really an MLS type of market when they're sandwiched between Philly and DC. I don't know if we'll ever see a team in Phoenix just because of the heat logistics, unless they can get a stadium built that's covered. And we know Miami's a disaster for professional sports these days, and they only seem to go if it's a hot ticket. We saw that with the Miami Heat when they were able to bring their little cabal of power together with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Bosh, and all of a sudden everybody in Miami was a basketball fan. They left, now nobody's a basketball fan anymore. So I think for MLS, those two markets are really, really strong, and I think that the established soccer communities really helps them. Now we have our two oddballs, and the ones we have basically now already burst the bubble and said are on the outside looking in. That's Detroit and Nashville. Mm-hmm. Nashville has been waiting on a USL team and now has all of a sudden tabled this MLS stadium. I think they're a little late to the game and they don't really have anything established, whereas Detroit has come forth with this Ford Field project that has drawn attention of the MLS offices. What are we looking at in those markets? Maybe not so much now, but for the future. I know obviously Nashville's a bit of an experiment. We'll see what happens. Detroit has an established soccer team that's none too happy with this MLS plan. And personally, I think in a market like Detroit, if you don't have those 10,000 people who are willing to come on board, that's a big gap to try to fill now. If the established soccer community in Detroit, as small as it may be, of 10, 15,000 people on a regular basis, are going to support an NPSL team and have basically said, we don't care if there's an MLS team. This project that we've started, where we funded and we bought the stadium that was Hamtramck High School and renovated it, and we're bringing teams over from Italy, we don't want to be a part of this. Is that an issue for Detroit? Maybe not so much right now, but down the line, is that a holdup for you think maybe the league, if they look at this and go, well, if we don't have these 12,000 hardcore fans, where's our base? Where's our supporters group if they're over there and they won't come over here? Is that an issue in Detroit? And what's your thoughts on Nashville?
First on Detroit, I actually think the stadium is their biggest issue. I was surprised that they're even in the top four. I think this is a debt of gratitude being paid to an NFL owner by a couple of his friends, because the division that you're going to have out there is real. And remember, Detroit apparently signed a letter of intent to join the NASL. So we know that they would be propped up a little bit, but they have. So they can quickly become a Division II side, depending on how a lawsuit goes. I think Detroit's nail in the coffin was abandoning building the stadium, going to Ford Field. They're going to try and pitch it as they're going to be the next Atlanta United. For me, it's not a sell. I wouldn't even have them in the top four. I think they're the long shot. I wouldn't put anything past MLS, though. There are times when they do things that don't make sense. However, I think Detroit gets passed over. I think after this, they may not recover in time for the next round, because you're giving some other places another year or so to get their ducks in a row. And if Detroit holds firm on this Ford Field thing, I think that ruins any chance they have.
I'm with you 100%. I think you said it really well, and I kind of laid the groundwork for it. That without and I understand the idea that they're going to try to pitch that we're going to be Atlanta United, not without those fans of Detroit City. If you don't have them, you don't have that, and they're going to be the ones who do the groundwork for you. And if they've basically raised the flag and said we're ready to go to war for what they basically, because it's been around for 5 years, our team, our club, whatever you want to call it, good luck. And I think, again, like you said, the stadium's a problem. I don't think they could fill Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan to 70,000 every game, 16 times a year in the summer. And then by the same token, this is an NFL ownership group, then expect a dying area financially to then turn around and give them their big bucks in the fall for the Lions, or go out to Ann Arbor and support Michigan, for football. I don't see how that could work. And I think that at the end of the day, if they have to make that pick, the Lions folks will kind of back away a little bit as well.
Yeah, the only advantage they have is their stadium's ready. That's their advantage. It's already built. They don't have to get any government money, anything like that. Everything's done. It's there. They're MLS ready in that sense. They could play next season. All they would have to do is get players and a coach. If you really think about it, it's all they would need. And they could fill the spot that Miami can't fill, make it an even number going into the league next year. That's how easy it is for them. But again, I still think that they're going to get rejected. And then for Nashville, I think Nashville had the second slot until the Cincinnati vote passed. I think they were going to get it. They already had the fairgrounds looking good. Everything was positive. I think the league was very impressed with what was going on down there. And the Cincinnati vote passed. Now there's a lawsuit that's going to be heard on December 15th, a big day in the soccer world, with people who are trying to block the state from working with the club at the fairgrounds. Probably a meaningless lawsuit. All it's going to do is keep them from getting an MLS team this time around. Having said that, if it's not Cincinnati, it's Nashville. For me, they were the constant back and forth. Cincy, I think, was always down to the stadium. I think they got it solved. That's why they get the edge. If they didn't, we'd be having a little bit different conversation here. We would have had, be talking about Nashville going through and Cincinnati having been third because they didn't have the stadium. I think that put them over the top. Sacramento and Cincy are the two I'm looking for to get named expansion sites.
I agree. Nashville, the stadium for Cincinnati getting the funding put them over the top. Otherwise, if you talked to me about this a month ago, I would have probably had Nashville ahead of them. And last time we were on television, we talked about this, and I had even said, I think for Major League Soccer, they have some interesting things going on where they have their Actors Guild and whatever you want to call it out in Los Angeles, where they've got, Will Ferrell and Mia Hamm and Garcia Parra and Magic and whoever the heck else is in that LAFC 3,000 person ownership group where they all put in $1 or whatever it is. And, you have the Yankees in New York, and then is Nashville going to be Music City FC? Is it going to be the country music group where they bring in the Blake Sheltons and Carrie Underwoods and Darius Ruckers and say, hey, this is our team, and they're all out there trumping for the team like you have out in LA? I think that was something for me that I think MLS might have considered. I don't know if they did or not, but for me, if I was in the MLS office and I said, okay, country music, we can reach this portion of the country using these people that doesn't really watch soccer, but if these people say they like soccer, then maybe everybody else that listens to them will like soccer. And I think up until that stadium got passed in Cincinnati, that could have been a real possibility. But now that that's taken care of and Nashville's run into a little bit of trouble, that's not happening this time around.
There's only one way I think they could get in. And I'm going to go to Mr. Lewicki, who a couple weeks ago wasn't sure if Miami and Beckham would ever really happen. He's starting to be convinced it won't. If MLS abandons David Beckham in Miami, Nashville could be the third. They could come out and say, here are two, and guess what we're doing? Miami's out and Nashville's in, or Miami's out and Detroit is in. They could do it that quickly. It's going to be real interesting because this Miami problem is not going to go away, and that lawsuit is going to get heard till July. So you're going to have this whole here. MLS is staring at least one season and possibly as many as three with an odd number of teams. And that's a scheduling nightmare in itself. Now 100%. You got bye weeks. You're going to have teams playing Thursday and Sunday like they did a few years ago when they had it. They have to fix this problem. Sacramento or Cincinnati could jump in quick, but are they going to do a Minnesota United? Minnesota United took one for the team when they came in with Atlanta. Hey, we'll come in early. You saw it at the beginning of the season how unprepared they were, on the field especially. There just wasn't enough time to bring things together. Now, Cincinnati and Sacramento would be in similar positions. They already have teams, but let's be honest here. These teams aren't good enough to play week in and week out in MLS.
No, not in the long haul.
And, maybe it's a little less work, especially for Cincinnati, but there's a lot of work to be done, and there would be a very short time frame. Even if Detroit, was put in that position, they'd have the same thing. Nashville's probably a couple of years away. So it's going to be interesting how all that unfolds.
No, I'm with you. I think Cincinnati is probably a little more prepared to take the bullet like Minneapolis did, roster-wise, than Sacramento is. We saw last year, again, that was on one-offs over the course of the season. They sacrificed a little bit on the regular season end to make that run through the Cup as a result. But the type of player they've been able to draw has been pretty good, and even some of the guys they've brought over in the last window. They just signed a player, Dekel Kainan, who's played for Israel 30 times. He's a defender, kind of guy who's aging, probably not MLS good enough, but if they had to use him, he could probably get him through a season. But I don't think you're going to see them jumping in, next year if they get this right now. But to
possibly 2019. Definitely, I don't see anybody jumping for 2018. It's going to go as is because they wouldn't have enough time to even put anything together. But I think somebody could slot in 2019. But again, that starts shuffling the deck. Two more teams coming. You got one in between. Where's this other team going to come from? If they finally tell Beckham no,
I think that has to happen. If they're going to do it, it has to happen now. Because you have two other teams ready to go on the table, and I think it's a case of coming down to pick one. And personally, if it was me, I like what you said. I like the idea of Nashville. Detroit's got its own pitch, but its own issues. I think Nashville's a little more clear-cut and done, where the community's interested, whereas Detroit's soccer community is certainly not interested in the MLS idea. So maybe that's the route they might have to go down, is where you finally tell Mr. Beckham, well, we gave you 10 years, and you've done nothing with it. And you picked Miami.
And they're looking at,
that was your choice.
Time I heard,
that was your choice.
It was a 2021 launch, which is going to be after these next two teams. MLS could also turn around and wait for that lawsuit and say bye-bye Beckham, and then award 3 next time.
They could.
They don't have to do it now. That gives San Diego more time. Maybe St. Louis can find their feet again. Maybe Detroit could put something, assuming that they don't get it, can put something together that's better than what they've got now. Phoenix could get some momentum with what they're doing. The San Diego vote will happen by then for their MLS side. So there's a lot of moving parts for the next one, and MLS could wait a little bit and let that Miami thing develop a little more. And they have another 8 months before they really have to dive into that.
Do you think that could open up Charlotte as a possibility again?
I think Charlotte's out.
Okay.
I think it would be under North Carolina FC, which is the triangle.
The triangle. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Charlotte is going to be in play at all. I think those NASCAR guys aren't going to be able to get it together. The county, the city, everybody's on the wrong page down there. I think
Raleigh's got a better shot then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. about covers us on the MLS end. We've got a little bit of time left. Let's jump in right now. There's two things that happened in the last week here involving the creation of a British-style supporters trust. First was the Atlanta Silverbacks, most recently of the NPSL, and then Oakland County FC of Michigan of the UPSL, establishing a co-op, if you will, amongst their ownership group, and then a fan supporters trust. You want to break this down a little bit for everyone?
Essentially, this is part of what I'd say is the little bit of the revolution that's being felt or pressured that people want higher levels of soccer in the United States. And the supporters trust in Atlanta's case, they've been given the opportunity to invest up to get 25% of the club owned by supporters. I didn't see what Oakland County's was, but I did read a little bit on Atlanta's, because you could go in. They've got different levels, to determine what your investment is, how your voting status works. I mean, you and I could get something as an out-of-towner, things like $50 or $100 a year, and as an out-of-town rate. But I think it's an interesting dynamic. It, to me, truly brings the word club into play, because now the community is invested. It's a vehicle of the community. Yes, you're still going to have your money person at the top, but your supporters now are going to have more of the say on what's going on, the direction of the club. Some of those bits and pieces that you're not being run solely off the whim of a billionaire or a millionaire, at that level. So it's an interesting thing to watch, to see how it develops. Can Atlanta get to the 25% threshold? How many people are actually going to be in tune with them? Because you have to remember, of all the clubs to try it, the club that's trying it just had noisy neighbors come in, and they're putting 70 some odd thousand people in a stadium. So how many more people are going to go, oh yeah, let me also invest over here, or let me invest here instead of spending my time with the big club? It's very interesting. It had to be done somewhere. Peter Wilt is in favor of this model because it really does ingrain the club in the community. And I think for a place like Oakland County, it's perfect. I think that's how you grow some of this. I think for Chattanooga, it's working with Detroit City. I think they have a similar dynamic going. Either that or their supporters are just so involved. But I thought that they had something going already. I think you're seeing that evolution, and I think some are going to work and some won't. So the Atlanta one's going to be interesting. Very crowded out there, especially you still have a little bit of this NASL talk out there. If that ever comes to fruition, or if that club decides to go to NISA, the Atlanta Silverbacks try and make that jump in a year or two from the NPSL. A lot of moving parts to these, but it's good to see. I look forward to seeing this more. I think we need a couple, I'll say case studies, because as these become successful, when somebody else wants to do it, you've got somebody to talk to. How'd you do it? How'd you get it done? How do we approach our owner? An owner can reach out to the Atlanta people or the Oakland people and say, I want to go down this road. How did you do it? How did you get everybody involved at such a high level? I think it's just part of the evolution for some of the clubs, especially at the lower levels. I don't see this ever being, as of right now, an MLS thing. That's a billionaire's club. That's a playground. That's why they don't care if they lose money. They've got money coming out of their ears already. Robert Kraft is never going to want for anything for the rest of his life, and neither is his son, and neither is grandkids. But the people at this, I'll say the non-professional level. I don't like using semi-pro. There's no such thing. Either you're professional or you're amateur. I mean, you can say these are amateur level clubs because they don't pay their players. I think this is the model for them to help them grow. So when a promotion and relegation does exist, they can work on moving up the table.
I think that you've spelled it out as well as it possibly could. I think you hit all the positives. I think you hit the question in Atlanta. Certainly, I think, for soccer fans in Atlanta, it's going to take a different kind of fan, I think, for that investment to be made. It's going to be the Detroit City type of supporter. Somebody who looks at this and goes, yeah, the glitz and the glam of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's not for me. I live on the east in northeast Atlanta. We're going to Spaghetti Junction there to Silverbacks Park, which is, this is, or my kids play in the youth system. I'll do this. I think that's going to be more along the lines for Atlanta. I think what you say for a lot of these amateur clubs, non-professional clubs, whatever you'd like to call them, it is an opportunity to find the financial sustainability that I think so many of them lack, and I think in some ways it can allow them to also find the personnel that they lack, and maybe they can use some of this cash, the cash infusion that they will receive, to then hire someone in a full-time capacity to do your partnerships, to do your ticket sales, to do your public relations, to start the ball rolling on the financial end of it and on the marketing end of it, that allows you to mature and reach something that you see has happened in Chattanooga, has happened in Detroit, seems to be happening up in Binghamton, New York still, with that setup that they've got going. The club took a little bit of a step back on the field this year, lost a lot of those foreign players, but their support's always been very good. So I think those are kind of, like you said, they're your samples, and now you see how things go with Atlanta, see how things go with Oakland County, and it can open up the door for a lot of teams, maybe a Reading United, here obviously we're in Pennsylvania, or West Virginia Chaos, to go out into the community and offer that connection to their fans and say, hey, listen, we're going to give you a voice here, and we want your input, we want your contacts, we want to make this something sustainable in the long term. And I think that's a good way to do it, because as you said, with some of these MPSL teams, some of these PDL teams, they're on a very, very tight shoestring, or they're looking for an owner who's got a little bit of money to cover $100,000 windfall. Every single season. I know we've both experienced the Keystone Conference, and the numbers that have been batted around to me by various owners to break even is somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 in most seasons. As that league grows and travel increases, it's only going to tick up. So I think the ability to bring your supporters into the fold and have them make a yearly investment into the team can at least help defray some of those costs. I mean, there's a team that I'm familiar with in the Keystone that they purposely play their games at 4:00 because they can't afford to pay for the lighting for their home games. If they had to play at 7:00, they couldn't do it. So these are issues that need to be solved on multiple levels. But the fan investment is a good start.
Yeah, and it's a little different when you have an ownership stake, right? Oh, I own a part of that club. I have a share. It's not just, hey, I'm buying a season ticket and I go sit there and I buy a beer. I think for somebody like in Atlanta, that's where the pro rel helps, because you're going to have your closed shop MLS. Anybody who doesn't want to be involved with that will automatically roll over, to an Atlanta Silverbacks. And, listen, who's to say that when United's out of town, you don't go and put a $5 down and go see, the lower division club that's battling for promotion, to Division III and to climb the ladder. And that's where promotion relegation helps clubs like this. But it's good just to see them trying to take a new avenue, a new approach, especially with what we perceive, the winds are changing, and, some things that we expect to see in the next, 6 years, 8 years. They could be at the forefront of
Well,
something.
I think so too, and I think you make a great point that as those winds change, you get that idea of United's out of town. I do like that the idea that okay, Atlanta United is out of town. Let's go root for the Silverbacks this week. They got a big game coming up, and oh, it's only $5. Yeah, what the heck, we're going. I think that could be that could be another option for some of these teams to look down as they try to build.
Yeah, and I haven't been to England. I know I've talked to people who have done it. Oh, my club's, they're in the north. My club went to to Southampton. So they go to the non-league club up the street to see a live game on the weekend. And I think actually some of the clubs miss out on that. They don't promote that. They should be saying, hey, come out and support non-league. And, who cares if you're in Atlanta and, you maybe, oh, I hate MLS and all this as a club, but you still say they're out of town. Come over here and give us a try. Help support us a little bit. Never hurts to ask for the sale.
That's right. You
You know,
don't get it unless you
yeah.
ask for the sale. But I think that a city that used to have that type of thing going on that has now changed just demographically so much was London.
Hmm.
My father used to go there in the 70s to visit. My aunt and uncle had a flat in London, and his cousins were over there, so he used to go over, and him and my uncle Eddie used to go, and they would go on every day of the week. He said, and there'd be a full stadium. He goes, we went to see Brentford, then we went to see Chelsea, then we go see Millwall, and then we go see Palace, and we go see Arsenal, and we go to Barnet, and whoever was around is who
Hmm.
we went to go watch, and it didn't matter whether they were in League One or the Conference South. He
Hmm.
said it was just something that people did, and they had their kind of game of the week, and I think that that could be that set up here in the United States as well. Any other notes that you'd like to touch on? I know there's some transfer rumors, but we could probably skip over those right now, as a lot of them are still just that. We do talk about the Red Bulls a lot. There's a player they put a bid in for Onitsha from Romania, who they got to outbid 5 or 6 other clubs. I don't see it happening. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
Not not today. As we talked a lot, we're about 2 weeks away, I think, from a few big shoes dropping between MLS expansion announcement, the outcome of the appeal to get the injunction. Once all that starts to go down, and it's going to be probably just around Christmas time, that's when a lot of things we spoke about tonight is going to be put in motion.
So we'll have a lot to watch here over the course of the next, I'd say, 2 to 3 weeks. Guess we should put a bow on the show then. It's been really good. We should have some more information, hopefully by next week, about where the NASL lawsuit is going as they prep to hear that, and we'll update everybody, of course, if there's anything that changes with the U.S. soccer presidency. Heaven knows we could
Mhm.
see somebody else jumping in at some point. But I think we know who our front runners are. I think we've established well about who we think is the leaders for expansion, and we both picked Seattle to win Saturday afternoon's MLS Cup.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nervous people in New York tonight because those four cities are waiting to make their pitch tomorrow.
To
So
be the
a lot
four,
of lot,
go ahead.
like I said, a lot of stuff going on. Over the next 2 weeks with presentations and lawyers and all kinds of good stuff.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall tomorrow. What I
Uh,
would do to be inside that room when this goes off on December the 6th. But it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this year ends. And then, once we come into January, we'll have to start talking CONCACAF Champions League because that'll be heating up. And then the teams will be making a lot of off-season moves. We may even have a few next week. There's some in the works that we'll see what happens. It looks like at least agreements in principle will be made. Obviously, the papers won't be signed until January, but it looks like there are a few that will be tied up specifically for Atlanta United, and we'll get into that next week. JJ, final thought.
put on your seatbelt. It's going to be a wild December.
I've got nothing else to add. Make sure the airbag is ready to deploy because it's going to
Yeah.
for a few MLS hopefuls, and we'll have to clean up all the glass that's left.
Yep.
All right, so that'll do it for the corner kick for this week. We'll be back here next week with another edition. Thank you for tuning in, Alex Fidrashevsky, JJ Pepe. Ciao.
Ciao.